Hi, it's Katrina! From vessels that casually floated across entire oceans to ships that mysteriously lost their entire crew, here are 8 incredible abandoned ships. Number 8. Ryou-Un Maru. In March 2011 in northeastern Japan, the Tohoku tsunami washed the 164-foot fishing boat Ryou-Un Maru away from its mooring in Hokkaido. Japanese officials assumed that the vessel had sunk and canceled its registration. Nobody knew that it was actually floating across the Pacific Ocean. Prior to being swept away by the tsunami, the vessel was slated to be scrapped anyway, according to Coast Guard Chief Petty Officer Kip Wadlow. It was built in 1982 and had a long career shrimping for a Hokkaido-based fishing company, but it apparently had a thirst for adventure. 1 year later, a Royal Canadian Air Force CP-140 Aurora aircraft performing a routine air patrol spotted the vessel in the Gulf of Alaska, about 180 miles west of Alaska's southeastern coast. Because its registration had been canceled, the ship no longer had a legal owner. Reuters reported that its former owner had no plans to salvage the ship. The Bernice C, a 62-foot-long Canadian vessel, claimed salvage rights to the Ryou-Un Maru and attempted to tow it, but ultimately failed due to a ruptured fuel tank that was unable to be pumped out. To avoid the vessel becoming a navigational hazard, a U.S. Coast Guard cutter named the Amica set it ablaze with cannon fire in April 2012. 4 hours after bursting into flames, the Ryou-Un Maru finally ended its rebel journey and sank into the depths, landing about 6,000 feet below the surface. Sadly, during this process, the fishing boat released an unknown amount of diesel fuel into the ocean. Number 7. SV Kaz II. In April 2007, a 3-man crew set out in a 12-meter catamaran called the SV Kaz II, with plans to spend 2 months sailing around Australia. At the helm was the skipper, Batten, joined by brothers Peter and John Tunstead. They were bound for Western Australia, where they all lived. 3 days later, the vessel was discovered drifting 88 nautical miles off the Australian coast near the Whitsunday Islands. It was in near-perfect condition, minus a ripped sail, and the engine was idling. Aboard the SV Kaz II were scattered newspaper pages, a pile of clothing on a bench, a laptop computer, and a half-empty cup of coffee, but no people. Numerous theories quickly sprang up regarding the missing men, including that they had fallen victim to pirates or drug smugglers, or that they had staged their disappearance for insurance purposes. Some people even believed that some sort of supernatural event was to blame. In any case, the ship was abandoned. The 3 men were never located. Investigators hypothesized that one of the Tunstead brothers fell overboard while attempting to untangle a fishing lure that was caught in the boat's propeller. While trying to rescue him, the other brother also fell into the water. After dropping sails to turn around and look for his friends, Batten was knocked overboard by the yacht's boom due to a change in wind direction. In August 2008, the coroner of Queensland officially ruled that the friends had drowned in a freak accident. Number 6. The Belle Amica. In August 2006, a classic schooner named the Belle Amica was discovered by an Italian Coast Guard crew off the coast of the Mediterranean island of Sardinia near Punta Volpe. There was no crew on board. The Coast Guard boarded the vessel, which was drifting toward rocks in shallow waters, and steered it away. Inside the Belle Amica were French maps of North African seas, partially eaten Egyptian meals, a pile of clothing, and the Luxembourg flag. Investigators determined that the ship was never registered in any country, including Italy. At first, it was believed that the Belle Amica was an antique vessel. However, the ship was discovered to be modern and owned by a man from Luxembourg named Frank Royaru. He had anchored the boat in deep water and abandoned it, later claiming that he planned to return to the vessel after addressing an emergency back home. One possibility, suggested by the Italian press, was that he may have left the vessel to avoid paying taxes on it. And now for number 5. But first, a big thank you to all of our subscribers. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. We're almost at 3 million. Can you believe it? Number 5. The MV Joyita. On October 3, 1955, the merchant vessel MV Joyita departed Samoa's Apia harbor in the South Pacific, bound for the Tokelau Islands, some 270 miles away. The ship was supposed to leave the day before, but was delayed due to a failed port engine clutch. Eventually, the vessel left Samoa on one engine, carrying 16 crew members and 9 passengers, as well as cargo consisting of medical supplies, empty oil drums, timber, and food. Joyita was due to arrive in the Tokelau Islands on October 5th, after a 41 to 48-hour voyage. The ship never reached its destination, however, and was reported overdue on October 6th. A distress signal had not been received by any ship or land-based operator. No signs of the vessel or its passengers were found during a 100,000 square mile search and rescue mission carried out by the Royal New Zealand Air Force. Joyita was discovered over 600 miles west of its scheduled route 5 weeks later on November 10th by Captain Gerald Douglas of the merchant ship Tuvalu. All 25 of its passengers and crew had vanished, along with 4 tons of cargo. Oddly, the starboard engine was covered with mattresses, and a doctor's bag was found on deck alongside several blood-stained bandages. The partially submerged ship was in very poor condition, with corroded pipes and a broken radio, which was tuned into the International Marine Radio Telephone Distress Channel. Due to faulty wiring, the barely functional radio only had a range of about 2 miles. Despite these issues, MV Joyita's holds were cork-lined, making the vessel extremely buoyant and highly unlikely to sink. This caused investigators to wonder why its occupants had not simply waited for help. The captain's log, all the life rafts, and the boat's firearms and navigational equipment were gone. An investigation concluded that the crew and passengers' fate was a mystery. What do you think happened to them? Maybe pirates? Let me know your guess in the comments. Number 4. The SS Arang Madan. In 1948, the ghost ship SS Arang Madan was allegedly discovered by an American vessel 400 nautical miles southeast of the Marshall Islands. The boat was littered with the crew members' bodies, and it reportedly caught fire and sank shortly after its discoverers boarded. The SS Arang Madan was supposedly en route to Costa Rica from a small Chinese port and deliberately avoided detection by the authorities, according to various reports. One German man actually survived, according to natives on Bokak Atoll, and an Italian missionary who claimed to have found him. The survivor explained that the ship's crew perished from the poisonous fumes of an improperly stored cargo of sulfuric acid. Then the survivor died. The accuracy of accounts of the ship's accident and the existence of the vessel itself are unconfirmed. Its history and construction are unknown, and searches for an accident investigation report or official registration of the ship fail to turn up any such records. Number 3. Carroll A Deering. The 5-masted cargo schooner Carroll A Deering was last spotted with its crew on January 28, 1921, while passing the Cape Lookout lightship off the North Carolina coast. The American vessel was on its way back to Norfolk, Virginia after delivering a cargo of coal to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Speaking through a megaphone, a tall, thin man with reddish hair and a foreign accent aboard Carroll A Deering told the Cape Lookout's keeper, Captain Jacobson, that the ship had lost its anchors during a storm. He asked Jacobson to notify the ship's owners, the G.G. Deering Company, of this. 3 days later, surfman C.P. Brady discovered the Carroll A Deering ran aground off Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, while on lookout duty at the Coast Guard station. For centuries, this area had been known as a common shipwreck site, earning it the nickname the Graveyard of the Atlantic. Due to bad weather, rescue ships were unable to approach the vessel for several days. Deering's crew, logbook, and lifeboats were missing, along with the crew's personal effects. The ship's rudder was disengaged from its dock, and the steering wheel was shattered. At the time the vessel was abandoned, ingredients were being prepared for the next day's meal, as evidenced by foodstuffs in the galley. A failed attempt at salvaging the Deering was made by the Coast Guard cutter Manning. The wrecked ship was declared a navigational hazard and was destroyed using dynamite. Nobody knows what happened to the vessel, but theories abound. Included among them are that the disappearance was caused by pirates, bad weather, and even communists. Number 2. The Sabrina. In October 1917, the British 3-masted sailing barge Sabrina departed Falmouth, Cornwall, England with a cargo of Swansea coal. Commanded by a man named Captain Martin, the ship was bound for Saint-Brieuc, France. 2 days later, the Sabrina was found run aground south of Cherbourg, France, on Rosal Point. Aside from some disarrangement of the rigging, the ship was undamaged. The lifeboat was still in place, the galley fire was still burning, and the dinner table was set for 5. Personal effects and clothing belonging to the ship's crew remained on board, along with the vessel's logbook, which contained no suspicious mentionings. The crew, however, was missing. Their fate is unknown, but many hypothesize that a German U-boat abducted the crew. This is a plausible theory, as a nearby Allied vessel reportedly spotted a U-boat shortly before the Sabrina sank. Other theories include the possibilities that the crew was abducted, swept out to sea, or victimized by a sea monster. Number 1. The HMS Resolute. In August 1853, the British Royal Navy ship HMS Resolute was trapped by ice in Viscount Melville Sound, Canada, during a search expedition for missing British explorer Sir John Franklin. Franklin had left Britain 8 years earlier in 1845 in search of the Northwest Passage. Government-sponsored search missions for the explorer began 3 years later. These searches were still ongoing when the Resolute became stuck in the ice, despite being specially outfitted for Arctic exploration, but still, it was 1845. The ship, which had slowed to a speed of just 1.7 miles per day, was abandoned in the spring of 1854. It was discovered by the crew of the American whaler George Henry in September 1855 off the coast of Baffin Island, Canada, after drifting some 1,200 miles. The Resolute was purchased by the United States Congress for $40,000 and refitted. As a token of comity, Commander Henry J. Hartstein sailed the ship to England and presented it to Queen Victoria on December 13, 1856. The Resolute remained in British waters, serving in the Royal Navy until 1879, when it was retired and salvaged for timber. A desk that now sits in the Oval Office was built with wood from the vessel. Thanks for watching! Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day! Bye!